Justin Jefferson on IR. Anthony Richardson out 4 to 6 weeks, maybe headed to IR. Devon Achane, knee injury, seemingly not headed to IR, but it doesn't look great. It's starting to feel like this season is cursed for me. I'm sure a lot of you guys out there, if you're a Saquon drafter, an Eckler drafter, maybe you felt the same way at some point. Today, we're going to talk about it all. We're going to talk about best ball. We're going to try to level ourselves out here because it is hard sometimes to go through these waves of sadness, the waves of vague depression you go throughout the course of a tough NFL season. Let's talk about it. Let's pull up the screen here. Of course, these are the top scorers so far on the year, according to Fantasy Pros, half-point PPR formats, what we're looking at. Before we get into all this stuff, I just do want to say really fast, and I'm going to be real with you guys here, as I always try to be on Splash Play. I'm on a tough run right now. Like, this has been a difficult start to the season for me between the stuff that fought for Football Outsiders, as I've talked about on here, behind an incredible amount in pay, behind basically the equivalent of a car, a nice car, in pay from them. My grandmother passed. It has been a best ball season where a lot of things that I felt good about, things that I could control and still felt like the teams were right, still not coming together the way I want. Christian Watson ends up getting hurt right before the year starts. A lot of guys going down. I think it is important to kind of do these self-check-ins for yourself to remind yourself, hey, this is just a game. It's also very early in the process of best ball overall. We are just 5 weeks in, heading into week 6. Obviously, as we get into week 6, it's a third of the season out of the way, but there is a reason a lot of people out there just don't check their best ball teams until the end. There's some, I think Lord Reeves had said before, he didn't even look at his team until after the season ended last year. So it's important to keep it in mind where if you are a person that lives and dies week to week, that checks everything week to week, to recalibrate yourself and know that it is, again, a war of attrition. It's a battle to get to week 17. It's a long haul, but also for yourself, for your own mental health, to remind yourself that this is just a small portion of time, a small portion of life and all of that. So it gets hard. It's not easy for anybody. It's not easy for me sometimes, but I'm just going to say that out loud because I know it can be really discouraging when it just feels like cursed, like is on the thumbnail. It just sometimes feels like you're cursed, but life is a game of ebbs and flows. There's highs, there's lows. I've always believed that. It always kind of comes out in the wash. Shout out to the chat, though. That's my little monologue. On a positive note, Pittman's fantasy value just went up with the stash thrown to him. I don't think so, man. I think that he's certainly a little more opportunity, I guess, throughout the course of a game, but the upside is not as high. Josh Downs, I know Pete talked about this yesterday on his portfolio review. Josh Downs had all his production when it was AR out there, and then obviously AR goes out early. Downs has a couple more catches, but is still not the explosive player that he was looking before that. It's just mid. It's just a mid situation for the Colts, which is why, in particular, I mentioned it. Like one of the guys who's previously been on the stream on Splash Play, victory lapping AR's injury with me on Twitter. I'm like, dude, I already don't like you. Like, it's already tough to feel. And I'm not going to single the guy out too much, but it's just like, people out there are super toxic about the stuff. People, I think, also don't even get how the game works and don't even watch the game. Like, I don't expect everybody to watch Colts games, but if you watch an AR game versus a Minshew game, they're different. Like, doesn't mean that Minshew can't win. Doesn't mean that Minshew's not valid as a pro QB. But I don't think he's any great shakes, and it sucks to not be able to see a player who really has shown us a lot in a limited time be able to go out there. Bums me out as a football fan. Of course, bums me out as a long-term bag holder. Thought it might be better for Josh Downs and Pittman. Yeah, so I think we just talked about that one. As long as AR can return before week 10, my team is the top 750, looking great. Hoping AR can avoid IR. I hope so too. We shall see. Certainly a big, strong man, but a big, strong man does not seem to know how to fall, which is one of those underrated QB aspects. You watch Jalen Hurts out there, much smaller than AR. Obviously, we all know about his squat power that could push the brotherly shove or the tush push over and over again. But point being, for a guy like Jalen Hurts, it's like he's skinny, but he kind of wiggles through hits. He kind of lands in a way that's a little bit softer, whereas every AR hit is like a fucking Easter Island head, like falling over. So it's tough, man. But point being, like, I just think, number one, anybody victory lapping these injuries, I didn't victory lap Saquon. I didn't victory lap Eckler. I didn't victory lap any of these things. So I think there's a certain amount of class that goes into this process, and just your respect for your fellow drafters, your fellow community out there. But also, you know, this can happen to anybody. This can happen any week. Again, we still have 2/3 of the season left, and you're telling me that McCaffrey's not going to have any injury at any point. You're telling me that all these other guys that are outliers, Mostert, a guy who's been banged up throughout his career, is he not going to get hurt at some point? It's all very volatile. It's all up in the air. So, like, I just think ultimately you reap what you sow with this stuff. So I find it particularly gross that people would be like, oh, well, that Chase over Jefferson thing, not looking that, like, dude, it's an injury. It's happened. It's football. It's unfortunate, but that's the name of the game. Bro, I got teams with Chubb and Jefferson. That's right. I forgot about Nick Chubb too. Connor, basically anybody that's hurt. I have Deontay Johnson, another guy as well. So there we go. Appreciate you still doing the review show when things don't look as good. It's a huge positive of your character as a person. Thank you. Though I will say I'm still doing well on DraftKings, but we'll look at the portfolios in a minute. Let's go through though. Let's look at the top players. Of course, feel free to vent in the chat as much as you want. This is a healing day here because I really think what I'm experiencing right now, the push-pull of this, like, look, there are not a lot of people that are funding a startup out of pocket while dealing with the payroll stuff that I've dealt with Football Outsiders, dealing with just the run of a football season. So I'm a little bit alone on that kind of island. But I think, the spectrum of things, like it sucks to lose in DFS. It sucks like with all the new tools as well. You feel like you should be crushing. It's like you're not crushing the same way that you might have in other times where you weren't using any tools. There's a lot of things this year that I think are kind of compiling that make me feel a little bit stressed. And I think for some people out there, unless you're one of the millions of people in the Deposit Kingdom Discord who are just going to Miami week after week, if you're not one of those guys, like there's a lot of run bad that's I think come so far with this year. So talk about it honestly. It's always what we do here. And shouts to the Squirt Squad as always. Appreciate all you guys being here. This is what Splash Play is about. We are a community. And again, this is an honest fantasy football community, unlike a lot of other ones out there that'll just puff out their chest and keep going out week after week. So let's talk about the top players. Christian McCaffrey, number 1 overall in the year in half-point PPR. Not a surprise there. Does have the down week. Of course, if you have a 45-point week the week before, it is going to balance things out a little bit. Still not a huge lead, though, for McCaffrey overall relative to the scoring. Not that far ahead of Tyreek. Not that far ahead of Diggs. So, again, wide receivers, I think, still fitting the thesis of what we talked about all offseason, especially if these guys are going to be healthy. I think that's a positive thing. So Christian McCaffrey, though, looking great. Easily the top running back so far. Josh Allen at number 2 on the year. Tyreek, number 3. No surprises there. Jalen Hurts, despite what, again, has been a relatively mid-season by the standards that he put out there last year, he's still in at number 4 overall. Justin Fields coming on strong here. 2 straight games in a row, showing a lot of the upside. Again, another thing that we talked about in the offseason. If he can just be a league average QB, if he could be even slightly better than that, they're going to be in a tremendous situation, especially once he starts to run the ball a little bit more. So Fields, 2 games in a row, 28.9, 33 points. Looking really good for Fields. Kirk Cousins, you got to worry going the other way now with Jefferson out for a month. This is a Vikings team that's already fairly adrift, not winning a lot of games. That is something that I think has already portended the potential for a tank season. Now with Jefferson out, we'll see what fight they have left in them. Obviously, they can feed Hockenson more. Jordan Addison, still a high pedigree guy who can play a bootleg version of Justin Jefferson role. Did do that a little bit on Sunday. But I do think for Minnesota in general, for Justin Jefferson, for Cousins, to a lesser extent for Addison, for Hockenson, this is a really fluid situation that I think could go the way of them deciding they don't want to win this year pretty soon. And I think that would be the best thing for their future as well. So very risky point right now for Kirk Cousins, who has been outperforming a lot this year as a guy who doesn't run and creating a lot of value. The Vikings are in tank mode. See, I don't want to, this is not a thing that you should speculate on. Unless you are a literal doctor who specializes in shoulders, I don't need that in the chat right now. Just being real with you. It does seem more likely that they haven't put him on IR immediately. Jefferson went on IR immediately. AR, not so much. So we will see, but there's no reason to do the worst doom and gloom outcomes for everything. It doesn't fucking help anybody. Sorry, creamy sauce. 2 of the men at number 7, Patrick Mahomes at number 8, Stephon Diggs, number 9, Brock Purdy, number 10. I think these are all plays that make a lot of sense. Brock Purdy, we have talked about as well. Player that's certainly an outlier. I think I mentioned to our guy Meatwad on Twitter this weekend because he was venting a little bit about the Brock Purdy conversation and how basically he feels like Brock Purdy is a top 10, top 15 QB, but isn't a great player. The issue is like if you're not fully caping for Brock Purdy, if you're not saying that he's the MVP, then people are going to go like, oh, well, you're shitting on Brock Purdy if they're a Brock Purdy supporter. If they're a Brock Purdy like disbeliever, they just want you to go like, oh, this guy basically picked him out of a grocery store and he started for the Niners, best spot in football. Anybody could do that as a QB. In reality, the truth is somewhere in the middle. Brock Purdy's been a tremendous outlier, but he is just the driver of the bus. He is just the guy making things run the way that Kyle Shanahan wants it to. That itself is a skill. He's still the best Shanahan QB, I think, throughout this point in his career. I believe it's the first 14 games he's played. He's outperformed Matt Ryan. He's outperformed Jimmy Garoppolo. He's outperformed everybody else that's been a Shanahan QB. So you have to give him that credit. Yeah, that said, I think the credit goes a lot more so to the schemes, the talent around him. So that's how I feel about Brock Purdy, but the results are the results. Top 10 player on the year, can't argue that. Russell Wilson, not far behind either, as number 11. Forget things we can't control. My Reek fade is literally just pain. Doesn't he know he's old and as a 1B who's better? Clearly not. He might be retiring, he said, even though players never actually follow through in that. See Aaron Donald, who apparently didn't even want to come back. Then he gets a contract. He does come back. But for Tyreek, though, he's an outlier player in an offense that plays incredibly vertically, that plays the way you're supposed to, that plays the way that even the Packers should have last night with the deep plays that they had, the close success plays that they had. That's something that I think I believe in more than anything in fantasy football. So you just buy into the offense, buy into the coaches. Teams that press downfield, teams that come from the Shanahan pedigree, going to be ones that look good. So just something to keep in mind there for your fades in the future. But who am I to begrudge anybody? QBs on the year, top 10, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts. Again, same guys we just saw. Justin Fields, Kirk Cousins, still QB4 in the year. Do expect that one to go down. Tua Tagovailoa at number 5, Patrick Mahomes at number 6, Brock Purdy, number 7 overall QB, Russell Wilson, number 8, Lamar Jackson, number 9, Jared Goff, number 10. So Goff coming in strong, had the one rushing touchdown this week. I do expect him to be a little bit closer to this 23.9 as a ceiling than the 27.4. He just does not run enough, but still pretty good run out for Jared Goff. Again, we talked about the stacks with Detroit being very live this year. I was hoping that Gibbs might be more of a part of that, though I was under the field on him. So I guess I'm lucking out well in that respect. But Goff, to me, just a player that should be able to distribute this ball well. No Amon-Ra St. Brown, no problem for them. There might be tougher and some other tougher matchups as they come, but Goff, I think, very live to finish the year as a top 10 QB. Let's see, where's that other question here? Will Jefferson even play week 17 if they tank? I would think there's a chance that he would not. It's tough, man, because tanking teams can certainly go different directions where, last year we saw with the Cardinals where DeAndre Hopkins basically didn't want to play in any games on the stretch because the games didn't matter, and he was already trying to get out of the team. Jefferson, it's one of those fragile things where so the sharper people I know who know the cap, I've talked about, is that you basically would like to see the Vikings tear it down completely. So that means getting rid of Cousins, I think, before his contract is up so you can get some capital. Then you could also theoretically trade Jefferson because his rebuilding window would not align, or his prime window would not align with them rebuilding. So basically what they should be doing is probably trying to full tank and even trading Jefferson. If that's the case, like there's enough tape on Justin Jefferson, enough people that'll trade a number 1 pick for him that you probably don't need to trot him out there for week 17. So I don't want to read too much of the tea leaves there. Again, same thing like the AR injury. It's just like we don't know enough yet. But worst case scenario, if you're a doomsday prepper, I think that is certainly possible that Jefferson could not be playing by week 17 just because it might not behoove him or the Vikings. Top running backs on the year. Actually, quickly, where does Jordan Love fall? Because he's not obviously playing well right now. Did look positive about the fact that he's able to put in good games. Still at number 12. So really bad game against the Raiders last night. It's one that for me, I really thought, as I mentioned on the thumbnail, thought that it was a good shot for him to be able to get the ball downfield, make it count. The plays that he did try to strike downfield, he either did complete something or was very close to completing something major, including that last play of the game where a little bit of a miscommunication, a delayed throw by Love, not maybe the best effort by Watson, who was kind of fading away when the ball came his way, probably could have won that jump ball to win the game. So it is tough for Jordan Love, but I still think overall he's going to have a lot more weeks close to this 20-point marker than the 8-point marker, but some bad signs for Jordan Love. The guy cannot handle pressure at all, but still, better than Kenny Pickett. So we got that going for us. May trade JJ just for Caleb Williams because QB position is more important than wide receiver 1. But then who are they then they're trading with the Cardinals, who also are rebuilding. It just depends who gets the number 1 overall pick. Even the Bears, if they were to somehow end up in the 1 spot, which seems less likely with Fields coming on lately, if the Bears win the 1 pick, they probably also would want Caleb Williams, so they wouldn't do that trade. It just all depends on who gets going where. And more likely, I think a lot of teams will be tanking specifically to get that 1 spot to get Caleb Williams. So it's unlikely that they would trade for Justin Jefferson with the 1 pick. Let's look at let's look at running backs. We are in half PPR scoring here. So Christian McCaffrey, number 1 overall, no surprise there. Raheem Mostert hanging in at number 2, just solid game after solid game by Mostert. Mostert looking like a guy who's obviously going to matter a lot more if Achane is out for 3 to 4 weeks. We'll see what his timeline is, but Achane still himself at number 3. So he's done everything you can, expect out of a guy who got drafted where he was, top 115 pick, maybe sometimes closer to 130-ish. He's paying off pretty well, even with this injury going out. I think it all depends on what your lineup is around him. Why I advocate for drafting at least 6 running backs in every single build is because you want to be able to cover here. It's to sneak Achane in if he's out for 4 to 6 weeks instead of 3 to 5. But for Achane, though, number 3 running back on the year, hard to argue that. Sneaky play here is crushing him quietly. Travis Etienne, still some really bad games, but he's one of the few backs in the league that's starting to consolidate the backfield. Tank Bigsby less involved. Dearness Johnson, JaMychal Hasty, these guys getting less involved week to week. So Etienne's earning trust. The Jags starting to look a little better, though not looking like the team that I think they are drafted like this offseason. But Etienne, I'm telling you, my best team overall is in the Golden, of course, the tournament where only one person will win $20,000. That is my highest score by far across every single draft. That is a 750 score for me. It is being driven by Travis Etienne right now because I actually drafted Saquon in that one. He's not playing. It's all Etienne. It's all, I think, Brian Robinson. And I have one more other good running back in there. But ATN's been great. Hard to argue it. I still think there's some fragility overall to him where it just takes him fumbling a little bit, just takes him blowing pass protection, and they can bring in Bigsby. They can bring in Hasty. They can bring in Dearness Johnson. For right now, though, we are seeing the good side of ATN, so I'd feel good about that pick. Kyron Williams still in the hunt to be a steal of the draft. Zach Moss, I still think comes back down to earth. To me, he feels like a 10 touchback to Jonathan Taylor's, 20 touches as the season goes on. But Moss has been great. Moss paying off, obviously, with huge scores here. But he is a guy where if he's carrying your teams right now, unless Taylor goes back out, gets hurt again, he got paid, so he's not going to fake an injury at this point, you would think. Moss, it does seem like probably going to slowly come back down this way with maybe some potential to vulture some touchdowns as we go. Number 7, David Montgomery. Kind of surprised he's not higher, but he did miss the one game. So that's probably what balances him out. Another 0 RB hero. Again, you look at these guys all here. Oh, no, I fumbled the football. I'm completely cursed if I can't even hold the football. We got it back. But this is a 0 RB portfolio. Devon Achane or Mostert, I guess, or both if you really wanted to handcut guys. Still don't think that was the move, but it's paying off so far this year. Kyron Williams, Zach Moss, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift. This was your 0 RB portfolio that you could have gone to. Kenneth Walker at certain points you could have gone to as well. He's down to the RB 10 overall because he had a bye week. He's playing great, getting a lot of red zone work. Still think Charbonnet looms to take some touches away, but for right now, Walker has played a lot better this year heading into year 2. And you contrast him with a guy like Dameon Pierce. Dameon Pierce, people are so stoked. They're like, oh, he's season control of the backfield. He still sucks. He's still not playing well. Walker's actually playing well, and he's also seized a fair amount of control of the backfield, even though Charbonnet does seemingly creep up week to week. D-Monk going to have a tough time versus Tampa Bay, though. Maybe. I mean, he might have a tough time in terms of total yardage, but as long as they can get the ball downfield somehow, and Tampa Bay can't defend deep passes, it's just about the red zone work. For a lot of these guys, it's just about the goal line touches. Like for yesterday, with A.J. Dillon, he was a player that we found out after we did the video that no Aaron Jones. A.J. Dillon gets so much red zone work in general, and then with Aaron Jones being out, he's going to get even more. I played A.J. Dillon a lot because it was just like he's just going to get in there. All it takes is them getting the ball downfield even close to in range. They're going to get shots. Detroit's a lot better offense. I can get that ball in range for David Montgomery, so I really wouldn't sweat matchups for him. The volume being huge, the touchdown equity, the red zone equity being huge. That's what's going to get Montgomery there every week. He is a better version of Jamal Williams, and the sooner you adjust to that, I think the better lineups you'll have. He's basically already being priced like Derrick Henry on FanDuel, so you kind of have to start to treat him like he's playing, I think, if you are going to adjust your priors on David Montgomery. DeAndre Swift, Walker, we talked about them. Brian Robinson, not far outside the top 10, another 0 RB hero. Pacheco as well, top 13. Tony Pollard looking bad. Pollard, couple tough matchups. And he's the other side of what we just talked about with Montgomery. The red zone work is so good. This Dallas offense, though, like I warned about, looking very efficient in soft matchups. In tough matchups, though, they cannot bring it because they just don't have the creativity, don't have the scheme. They're basically running a bullshit offense that's just designed to take advantage of shitty teams and to keep the defense, doing its job. It's not one, though, that's meant to keep up with high-scoring offenses. Not one that's going to do that. So if the defense is not crushing it like it has to, you're going to see this offense have some really bad days, and I think we have seen that so far. And Pollard, unfortunately, is the one who suffers the most. And there is something, too, that, did kind of warn about in the offseason. As we went through last year, Pollard's production, his efficiency metrics, his EPA metrics, of course, expected points added, one that I swear by so much, that did start to come down. Like he just can't handle this level of volume. And you add in the fact that it's a shitty offense. He can't handle that level of volume and a shitty offense, and also an offense that's not moving the ball independently of him. So it's a tough scene for Tony Pollard where the games where the Dallas D is running hot, he's going to do great. The days where this offense is able to get it done in 20 pass plays, he's going to run great. The days where that doesn't happen, I just think you're going to see shitty games from Pollard, and that's what we're seeing so far. Too soon to say Gibbs is a bust. Absolutely too soon to say Gibbs is a bust. He's played okay. Like when Montgomery hasn't been out there, it's all about the volume, all about the usage. Volume is sometimes pretty hard to touch, pretty hard to predict in advance, but Gibbs, there was always that concern. It did feel like his ADP was accounting for a role that he wasn't going to have. That was how I felt about him. Only took him when he was a value in most drafts. So I do get it with Gibbs. I'm not going to begrudge anybody for having big Gibbs bags, but this team works because of what Montgomery's doing. It's not like you put Gibbs in, it's going to get better. Gibbs can't take these kind of short 8-man box carries and have the same success. It's just not his game. Wasn't his game at Bama. Probably not going to be his game as a pro, but he can get out there, can get some value in the pass game. The issues are not using him enough for that. So I think if you want to critique anything for Detroit, that's the issue. But I think as long as Montgomery's on this team, you're going to see Gibbs not have that role that is going to have the big upside because he's just not Jamal Williams. And Montgomery, a much better version of Jamal Williams. Other guys who stand out, Breece Hall, obviously on the upswing. I wouldn't be too quick to crown Breece Hall personally. I do think for him, Certainly a player that we know the explosive upside there. That said, he did this against a Denver defense that's not good at anything. I think for Brees, really what you want to see for him is to see Dalvin Cook continue to be minimized like he was in that last game. But then we saw more Michael Carter snaps. So I don't really know what to read of this Jets situation where feels like it's kind of a hot hand backfield to me. Brees was the hot hand on Sunday. I don't know that Dalvin Cook can ever be a hot hand. Sorry to our pal Jerry, who has quickly been proven to be one of the most incorrect people on the internet. So that's one thing I could feel good about that we did in the offseason. But for Brees, it's just one of those things where I think people are going to go into next week going, he's a 20-touch back every week. The game flow is going to work this well. The reason he had the success he did is because that defense sold out to stop Zach Wilson as best they could. And they did that. Zach Wilson did not have an outlier day, did not even have a competent day. But as a result, Brees got there. And I think there's going to be games where you see Brees have 10 touches for, 45 yards. And it's like, Brees is doing okay. Why don't they give him more work? And it just doesn't work out that way. So don't victory lap Brees would be my concern, or feel good about him for 1 week, but I wouldn't victory lap him over the course of a year. Nobody else standing out that much. Guys who are busts. And this is part of the season too that frustrates me is like, I really didn't take Ramondre at all. I really did avoid a lot of these guys that are starting to prove a little bit trappy. And the issue is that, the guys that took over them, Christian Watson hasn't really gotten there yet. Some of the other guys in that range too have not been fantastic. As Debo's been okay, but I was under on him. Keenan Allen's been pretty good, was under on him. So another kind of case where even if you have the best data, even if you prepare the most, even if, I would say I'm a sharp person. You guys might disagree after this video today. But point being, like, you just got to be player agnostic. You got to just take guys in the range. Even if you don't believe in Ramondre, you should then take every receiver in that range or take different running backs. And I think that is something that, as part of the process, we all love player takes. I love giving them out. I love coming from a place where I feel like I have better information than a lot of people and also better process. But that said, like, player takes can only get you so far. Like, I hit on Pickens, it doesn't fucking matter that much. So that's sort of the thing where it's being agnostic, being willing to take the Keenan Allens, being willing to take the Mike Evans more, just because they're there, I think is a very important part, a very important lesson. Ramondre, the RB dead zone. Jerry, yes, Jerry, we'll never forget Jerry for all he's done in terms of highlighting Dalvin Cook and giving us something to point to. No matter how bad it runs for me this year, I'll never be the guy who came to chat and got angry that somebody wasn't taking Dalvin Cook. So I've got that going for me. Let's see. Wide receivers. Yeah, Lenny, are we victory lapping Christian McCaffrey again after the 13 points? Is that what we're here to do? I think really, though, when you look at the running back room, to me, that really makes the case, though, to why, Jefferson's injury will change the equation. But even comparing Jamar Chase, like, I'd rather have Jamar Chase if we're going to get a few weeks of him unencumbered without T. Higgins out there. I'd rather have that than one of the running backs when you could just get that running back production and get it close enough with 5 to 10 guys who are going from pick 60 on. So I think, to me, everything that I believed is still correct. It's just unfortunately not the players that I believed in. Tyreek Hill is number one, half-point PPR. Tyreek Hill, number 1 overall. Stephon Diggs, number 2. 2 outlier days by DJ Moore put him up to number 3. So receiver, still fairly fragile. If a 45-point game by DJ Moore can knock him up that highly. Puka Nacua, despite the return of Cooper Kupp, hanging in at number 4. Just steady game so far. Of course, I do expect a lot more like this game coming up with Cooper Kupp and the target share that he earned right away. No ill signs of injury from Cooper Kupp. They used him about as much as they would normally. Targets were there. The depth of targets were there for him. So Cooper Kupp going to hurt Puka, but still going to offer up some opportunities for Puka where Kupp is going to draw attention away. We'll see Puka Nacua have some touchdowns, but he's just not going to get 15 targets, I would think, again this year would be my guess. Jefferson going out for the year at number 5, despite this 4-point game, or not out for the year, hopefully, but out for now. 4-point game, though, doesn't hurt him that much. Again, with Jefferson, you just wanted that consistent 20-point game thing. It's tough to lose that for a few weeks, but now your other guys have to step up. That is why, for me, it was all about drafting a bunch of wide receivers early in the hopes that you can get in a Jefferson. Even if he has a bad year, that you can get in, I don't know, a Watson if he has a bad year. Get into these guys who have explosive upside. So I still think drafting wide receivers early and as frequently as I did was the move that made the most sense and still checks out with the data. But the configurations obviously are where that's going to get you. Oh, is Jerry in here? Remember, all I said was Dalvin Cook over AJ Dillon. Still a bad take, but oh well. Hope you're doing well, brother. Shout out Jerry. I appreciate Jerry showing his face on a day where he was proven incorrect. But Jerry, you know what? I'm actually with you that I think there'll be some hot hand days in the backfield. It's just Dalvin's got to have a hot hand. But shout out Jerry. I appreciate him being here still. Jerry, we talked about Jerry's my bro. Jerry is a guy that I know he's strong enough to take it, much like Batman. He can take my abuse and be my person to beat up when I'm feeling bad. Jamar Chase at number 6, obviously the big game here helps him out a lot. I think the biggest thing for him is that Joe Burrow looked a lot more mobile in that game, had a few nice runs that he has not had at all this year. As I talked about before, that is something with Joe Burrow that if that's missing from his game, he's a completely different player that has a lot less upside. His touchdown equity, his rushing equity has always been a little bit more than people realize. If that's back, I think it's going to be great for him. It's going to be great for Chase. It's going to be great for the Bengal stacks. And hopefully it'll be good for Higgins when he gets back in. But with Chase, I think you kind of want to see Higgins be out for a little bit more. Historically, Chase has been a much worse player when Higgins is not on the field, but it does feel like Chase has made some jumps this year in terms of how he's playing. Again, the EPA numbers for him, negative last year. This year, he is incredibly positive. That is something for Chase where he's been playing really well despite a bad offensive environment. Jerry's part of the family. I agree. Look, if you can give out a bad take and come back and just know, or even a good take and victory lap it, I guess. But that's the test of a man's mettle is just showing up every day, taking your lumps and doing it. That's why I do these streams Monday to Friday at 11 a.m. And that's why I want more Jerry's in the world, even though, of course, we did have a very rocky start during a DraftKings draft. Keenan Allen, AJ Brown, Devontae Adams, Adam Thielen. This is 1-2 at this point. I don't know how you actually, before I take the lumps on Thielen, Adams, to me, man, I don't know what the fuck was going on with that game yesterday. That was really weird. Just felt like he was really low motivation on his routes. It's really not going out there. And you could say the Jair Alexander thing. They pointed out during the game, though, Alexander had only covered him on like 6 snaps at one point, I think in the third quarter. So it was not that. It was just Adams not getting open. Jacoby Myers, I think a little bit more of the bell, the apple of Jimmy Garoppolo's eye. And we certainly saw that pay out last night. Jimmy Garoppolo and Jacoby Myers, a captain, was a big move there to making showdown. But Devontae Adams, he's going to have better days. I just really question his motivation right now. It feels like he doesn't want to be in Vegas. Maybe a win helps assuage that a little bit. But I think he's going the wrong way. I think he knows that the Raiders can't compete. And if they can't compete, he seems like he doesn't want to compete. And I think it's a bad situation with him also being injured / maybe actually injured. Adams worries me, but I still think the teams that you got early that you could get with Diggs and Adams, Tyreek Hill and Adams maybe, I feel like those are very strong teams to carry into wherever you need to through the season. But for right now, Adams, I just worry about the motivation a little bit more. Devontae had a hurt shoulder. He was a decoy. I guess. I don't know. It's just now been a couple weeks where I feel like his route energy has not been the highest. Even the way that he talks on the sidelines where he wants the ball for the most part. He's not really even grousing for the ball. He's not looking like he's into plays. He's just kind of doing the job out there. And you can say it's a decoy thing, but I just think that he's giving the quotes publicly. I just think that his motivation right now is not the highest. And if his motivation is not the highest, he is a DeAndre Hopkins type where the production is going to immediately kind of ebb the other way if it's not going that well for him. Adam Thielen, number 10. So let's take our Adam Thielen lumps. Where did this go wrong? Like, what was wrong about Adam Thielen? The good news, I guess, is that for Adam Thielen, he's probably not paying off for many sharp players because sharp players were not drafting him very often. That said, what was wrong about the Thielen thesis, I guess, is the question. I think if you look at it, the main two things are, one, he's the only like real professional receiver in that room where DJ Chark is okay, but he's always been kind of a go route guy. Terrace Marshall, I think, has a ton of talent, but he's also not been a guy that has been used effectively, was used most effectively last year playing alongside Sam Darnold. And now this year, changing coaching staff, changing QB, he's just getting used like Jonathan Mingo. Mingo himself is not a deep ball guy. Again, I've talked about it all offseason. He looks like A.J. Brown. He does not play like A.J. Brown. He plays like Rondale Moore. So that's another thing too. And I guess the result of that is that Adam Thielen, just his ability to be a receiver who can run a slant route and get a yard of separation is enough for him in an offense that's like super shitty and not very creative. And I guess that's the lesson there is that, veteran receiver, even if they are on the more washed side, could move into the slot, could be a low ADOT guy for an offense that's not that good. I don't know. Like, I feel like Thielen, though, is not going to crater. And that's the part that I don't know how to reconcile in my brain. Because like you watch him play, he's not doing anything impressive, but he's won now, I think 2 milli makers this year. Like he's winning everything. Best ball advance rate's looking great for him. So Adam Thielen is clearly playing extremely well for what the run out was. And I think, again, that's more of a case of like for guys like him, Jacoby Myers, these are not fun guys, but they are just professional receivers in offenses that have professional QBs or, semi-professional QBs in the case of Bryce Young. But Bryce is just the guy that plays in the flow of an offense. So I think there's a little bit more meat on the bone to those guys. But then, the flip side of that would be a Juju. That offense running incredibly poorly. But, Mac Jones, you would assume, could get him the ball 5 to 10 times a game. That doesn't happen. So I don't really know what to take away besides just being a little more agnostic in some spots. And I think especially for receivers in the 100 range or more, Michael Thomas would be another guy too. Like these guys are just putting up solid weeks and you just wanted those guys in your portfolio. And that because they weren't trendy picks, because they weren't buzzy picks, because there were things you could nickel and dime about them, people took 0 of them. Like I took, I think 3 shares across fucking 500 drafts on Underdog. So I'm as guilty of it as anybody, but I think it's just one thing to keep in mind, keep in your back pocket for last year, just being more agnostic, just taking guys where they are, and maybe not full fading receivers. Yeah, I think is a one move that you could probably look at a little bit more. Thielen was a 33-year-old wide receiver who can't separate anymore. He was still effective in the red zone. I was off Thielen, but still would have drafted him after ADP. That's fair. Thielen was paid and had a short ADOT for a rookie QB. He was always a smash. I don't know if he was a smash. I guess it just comes down to because it's also coaching. Like it's Frank Reich being this guy who just is, I think, clearly moving out of the times. Like he's not a young progressive guy. He's not a Mike McDaniels type, not a Kellen Moore type. He's going to try to get it downfield. I think it's a combo of all of that where you have boomer coach who likes to run a West Coasty offense. You have a player coming in who's the only receiver who could just run decent enough routes to be a part of that West Coast offense. I think it comes down more to the coaching than the player, but that's something that I think is worth keeping in mind moving forward, especially for me as somebody that swears by this coach is good, this coach is bad, treat it accordingly. A lot of that stuff worked out correctly, but some of it too, I just looked at the downside. I didn't look at how the downside can be a positive. And I think that's something where Adam Thielen, where this offense being shit is a positive for Adam Thielen. And maybe if Bryce Young gets better, maybe if Josh McCown gets some more control and forces the ball downfield, maybe that changes the equation a little bit. For right now, though, Adam Thielen, assuming he can stay healthy as an older guy, just looks like a steal. And I think one that people are too predisposed to write off. And that's something that I think I will personally try to address next year with my content. Thielen was the latest drafted wide receiver one. Yeah, I guess that's probably true. I think, yeah, I would say that is correct, both in terms of ADP. He was the highest drafted wide receiver there. He came down with Mingo. I think the issue is really the Mingo part that threw people off. And again, it shouldn't have thrown me off because I hated Mingo. But Mingo coming in, having high draft capital, people then flocked to Mingo more. That kind of leveled out over the course of the draft offseason. But yeah, Thielen was a wide receiver one. And I guess that's just it, is just taking possible wide receiver ones. And then if they are in an offense that can fit that guy's skill set or just be regressive enough where Thielen doesn't have to play like Christian Watson. He doesn't have to get downfield, doesn't have to make big plays, he doesn't have to get as open as Jamar Chase. Those are things that probably bode well for a guy like Thielen. So again, it's nothing I can do about it now, but something to keep in mind for next year. Nico Collins looking good too. Nico, again, playing downfield, has had these really down weeks, but he's the kind of player for DFS tournaments. I would just keep trying him out there because you want to capture these 24, 32-point weeks, and you can absorb the 5-point weeks and just deal with it. But he looks great. Gabe Davis, George Pickens. I'm very happy with so far. I think despite a really shitty Pittsburgh offense, we see Pickens keep putting up usable games. I think I would prefer if it were both him and Watson alternating these 20-point weeks personally. But Pickens, I think, is showing me enough here. I have to guess that next year, if he keeps this up, he is going in that second, third round range, maybe worst case fourth. But Pickens, I think, looking really good, looking like a player. Target share has been soaring with Deontay Johnson. Obviously, it's going to come down a little bit when Deontay is back. Then he probably gets a few more explosive targets. So positive signs of life for Pickens here. And again, 2 usable weeks at this point, over 20 points at half-point PPR. No issue with that one. Marquise Brown doing fine. Mike Evans, the bye, knocks him down a little bit. Calvin Ridley, underperformer here. Still has a ceiling, but only broke 20 points once so far. Ridley, no issue with him, but I think a little bit overdrafted is what I'd say about Ridley so far. Yeah, a win for Spags. Yeah, we'll take it. With Thielen, Nico, and Puka, what's the point of going 0 RB? Because those guys are still fragile. So Lenny just doesn't like 0 RB, I guess is it. The point is that those guys are fragile projection guys who can't have the upside. Do you want to play Thielen, Nico, and Puka in week 17 against Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill and all these guys? No, you don't. That's why you're not doing that. And again, these are plays that they mean a lot early on, and Thielen might hold on for the course of a year. They all might hold on for the course of a year. But as we just saw with Nico can give you 4 points in week 17. Puka can give you under 10 if Cooper Kupp's going off. I think you're just very results-based process for Big Lenny, which I think is the most incorrect way to view it. But whatever. Nobody else too noteworthy here. DK Metcalf having a very good, efficient year, but the volume is just not there for him. The red zone targets have been down as well, getting out-targeted by Tyler Lockett in that, which is not what you'd expect for an enormous-bodied guy, another A.J. Brown build kind of guy. Metcalf, I think, will have better games at some point. For right now, just kind of looks like a floor receiver guy, which is not my favorite player to see, especially in a range where you could have gotten Keenan Allen and some other guys. Tight ends, we will look at the dumpster fire that is tight end and Sam LaPorta. So I guess another thing I can victory lap here in this day where I'm just down in the dumps this week of being down in the dumps. Sam LaPorta, people said rookie tight ends. I will point to our guy over at 4 for 4, of course, John Daigle, who was saying, oh, no rookie tight ends ever done it. And I don't want to just, a lot of people said it wasn't just Daigle, but Daigle really did dig his heels in on it. Sam LaPorta looks great. And where we are getting Sam LaPorta working out the best is that he's in a competent offense. He's a competent player, a guy who can avoid tackles after the catch. Does a lot of great things. He landed in the best possible spot, as well as just being one of those guys who was really good. Like Dalton Kincaid, Michael Mayer, all those guys were kind of similar prospects in the same range. Luke Musgrave as well, like similar prospects. And he got the best landing spot. He's paying it off right now. Don't expect him to hold on to tight end 1 on the year. Do you think Mark Andrews is coming for him? Travis Kelce obviously still looming large, as long as he can stay focused. All that Taylor Swift love making he's doing is probably fucking him up. But no, like Sam LaPorta, if you just didn't believe in rookie tight ends, I get it, but I think there were a lot of positive analytics for all these guys that we pointed out through the entire offseason. So I'm glad about my Sam LaPorta bags. And what else? I don't know. Travis Kelce, number 2, Cole Kmet hanging at number 3. Again, just took one outlier game for him to get at number 3. That's tight end for you. Mark Andrews at number 4, TJ Hockenson at number 5, George Kittle, number 6. Kittle has the one outlier game. Again, one outlier game is all it takes a tight end. So if you have a guy who's playing like shit for the most part, he's going to give you 3 to 4 spike weeks over the course of an 18 or 17 week season. That's probably enough for this guy to be a meaningful part of your portfolio. So that to me is why you take 3 tight ends. That's why elite tight ends here look a little bit less viable. But still, we will see Andrews, Hockenson, Kelce. Like those guys will probably be tight end 1, 2, 3 at the end of the year in some order. If LaPorta finishes top 5, though, that's a fantastic run out for a guy that was going basically undrafted for portions of the offseason. And then for other parts of the larger part of the offseason, going in the 150s, tremendous value. Love hearing you talk about holding tight ends. Thank you. It's like LaPorta. It was Kincaid and Mayer that just seemed like they wouldn't see the field. Go Knox. I mean, Mayer's getting on the field now. That was Mayer's best game yesterday. So I think that bodes well. Snap count was out for him. Route count was up for him. So that's pretty good. Kincaid's been out there. He's just not getting fed. And Diggs, I think the issue for Kincaid is really that Diggs is so much better than everybody else in that field. And Gabe Davis is frankly playing about as well as he has in his career in terms of being reliable. So that's the hard part for Kincaid. But if we saw Gabe continue to be shit, if we saw Diggs get bracketed and not be able to beat it, I think that's where Kincaid has his upside. So Kincaid will have spike weeks, but I think it's going to be hard for him to knock out a LaPorta over the course of a year, barring injury. Evan Ingram, Hunter Henry coming back down to earth. Stone cold 0 in week 5. That is tough. These guys, Hunter Henry, Ramondre Stevenson, as this New England offense continues to get shittier and shittier, there are people in New England who are calling for Bill Belichick to be fired. It's not looking good for this team right now. Still some potential to have spike weeks for Henry, but I think if you were victory lapping him going so late, you're a genius for taking him so much. I think he quickly looks like a much worse play than a LaPorta, and I think some of those other guys too that went in his range. Logan Thomas, Dallas Goedert. Dallas Goedert, one to note. Logan Thomas also one to note, where we talked a little bit in the offseason about him potentially being the bootleg version of Travis Kelce. Thought that game against the Bears was the first time he actually looked like that, where he's getting heavy usage there, was getting heavy usage in the red zone as well. Definitely a player that I think is going to have some good weeks moving forward. So if he were a part of your 3 tight end, late tight end build, I think it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, but definitely still potential to put up these 6-point games. I think the hope would be that Thursday night game shows that maybe they'll take the leash, take the container off of Sam Howell a little bit more. If they don't, though, I think you're still going to see some of these 6-point games for Logan Thomas. But if Howell could sling it like he did against the Bears, I think it's certainly in the range of outcomes that he just keeps putting up 10 to 15-point games, does Logan Thomas. And Dallas Goedert, just a great lever against A.J. Brown. He and Devontae Smith, I still feel like not involved enough to have the most confidence week to week. I think that A.J. Brown has really solidified himself as a wide receiver 1, as the apex of that group, whereas last year it was a little bit more agnostic. Obviously, a change in offensive coordinators will do that, but the route participation's there for Goddard, same for Devontae Smith, so those guys should have better days, particularly when A.J. Brown cannot get there. So just something to keep in mind. If you see an A.J. Brown chalk day, play Dallas Goedert, play one of those other guys. All right, my portfolio, where the live viewers are going up. So before we dig into this part, you can see the winning number going down. I will quickly ask you guys, please subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment here. I'm fighting the algorithm every day, doing 5 days a week of streams here on Splash Play. It's just me here doing shit, all the graphics, all the production, all the effort that goes in. So help a brother out. Please hit that like button. And of course, subscribe here for 5 days a week of content. And tomorrow will be Spags rankings. I'm going to try really hard to change that up. I actually think I came up with a numerical formula to determine the Spags rankings. So tune in tomorrow, because that's going to be a fun, different approach for what we've been doing there. And yeah, go check out Probably too. There you go. Check out Probably. All right. Let's check out our teams here. And we are an underdog as well, so I'll put up the underdog button. Use the promo code SPLASH, double your deposit up to $500 on there. My best team, let's look at that one. Let's start with something good. So we will go to 2023 NFL season. This is currently my best team, winning $0, but 750 points here for this one. I have Tua Tagovailoa and Derek Carr. Derek Carr has contributed 0 points to this team, so could have theoretically built a 1 QB build. Saquon Barkley's been out. Travis Etienne, Brian Robinson, Elijah Mitchell, Raheem Mostert carrying the load. Of course, Mostert being a top 3 player overall, going to do that for you. Tyreek Hill, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans, Jahan Dotson, Michael Thomas, Rondale Moore. Rondale Moore contributing points, bit of a shocker there. Isaiah Hodgins, useless. Terrace Marshall's contributed points. We'll take that. And Puka Nacua, probably one of the few entries in the Golden to have Puka Nacua. And then Mark Andrews and Juwan Johnson. Juwan Johnson's actually contributed points, so I can't knock that. This team is one where doesn't feel good. Like, I don't think there's any outlier talent here. I don't have Achane. I don't have a lot of guys that you would think are really great besides Puka. But overall, Tyreek carrying it, just steady wide receiver room. A lot of guys contribute points, helping out there. I don't know that this team is going to win the Golden. Again, the Golden, one person wins $20,000. This is not the place I think I want this particular team. But it is a team that's performing really well, so I'm going to highlight it here. And again, the stacking is the important part. Stacking always going to matter. I think in particular, running back, wide receiver stacking of offenses that are outliers. Miami is that, so that fits a lot of the stuff that we've talked about so far on these best ball streams. Check the chat real fast. Just like and subscribe. Join the Squirk Squad. Feel your pain, Spagsy. Still plenty of season left, onward and upward. I agree. It's just hard when there's multiple guys potentially on IR, but we move forward. Let's look at Best Ball Mania, though. Pre-draft teams, big board doing okay. Nothing too great there. Big board Superflex doing okay. Oh, actually, it's come down a little bit more. Advancing 5 out of 44. Again, just didn't stack enough into the early entries in the big board, which is something that I will rectify next year. You can get your player takes right on rookies, and you're still not going to have the outlier times in the big board unless you are stacking your guys up. So an important lesson learned for me after not going heavy on the big board last year. All right, Best Ball Mania. So I have 575 here. That means that I have 23 entries, I believe, that are advancing right now, which gives me just under a 16% advance rate. So relative to everything we've talked about, relative to this thumbnail, I'm still hanging in okay. An advance rate's about 16% on Underdog, so 15% for a mostly zero RB portfolio. I'm not mad about. Still the same things that we've talked about here, where I'm advancing 23 teams, and let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 out of 23. So about 25% of my advancing teams right now were Spags Stacks teams. Again, if you were missing this offseason, the Spags Stacks teams were ones where I spun a randomizer wheel to figure out who I'd be drafting that week, and then I would stack them up. So just the concept of stacking up different teams, forcing yourself and what the room gives you to get just different stacks to make it look different. That has been the big part driving those teams. So that is one thing I will highlight again. My head-to-head teams, Pete and I did about 30 of those. I am currently advancing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Advancing 6 out of my 23 teams. So again, another 25% advance rate for stream teams. So for me next year, I guess I have to just steal Pete's bit and stream every Best Ball Mania draft, because all of my stream teams have performed a lot better. I don't know if it's the pressure of you guys watching. I don't know what the fuck the deal is, but I am happy to do it again next year, because the stream teams all looking good. Everything marked with an SP. Also going to be a stream team. I think I have a couple non-stream teams, but really the large majority of all my teams here are the ones that have gone on stream. My top scorer, I believe right now, is this one. This one is currently in the top 10,000. Is a Baltimore-Miami stack. Lamar and Tua, J.K. Dobbins, dead spot already. Rashad White, Devon Achane, Jalen Warren, Tyjae Spears, Chuba Hubbard. I mean, the good news is these are 5 running backs who are contributing. Obviously, Achane with the knee injury. We'll see how that goes. Tyreek, DJ Moore, George Pickens, Quentin Johnson, hopefully going to have some usable weeks. Romeo Dobbs looked like dog shit last night, but so did everybody in that offense. So it wasn't Christian Watson. Alec Pierce, John Mechie, Braxton Berrios. I don't know if this team has enough juice to advance, but I am pleased to see that Braxton Berrios is giving me some points. Puka Nacua, watch out. Braxton Berrios on the upswing. Mark Andrews, Durham Smythe. So we're ready for week 17 with this one. We do have the rare DJ Moore without Justin Fields for me. I, of course, made the prognostication here on stream that if you are playing DJ Moore, a bet on DJ Moore is a bet on Justin Fields, so just get them together. This one, though, we got a little bit different. Took Lamar instead. So this team is unique and feeling okay. Top 10,000, can't argue that. And then can't see my scores for the bad teams. Got a good amount of third place teams overall. Any 12th places here? Here's the 12th place. Oh, Jones, Ritter, bullyish tight end. Let's see how poorly this one went for me. Of course, we got to show a bad one here. Can't have the good without the bad, right? Daniel Jones, Desmond Ritter. Ritter putting up as many usable points as Daniel Jones would not have been a popular bet in the offseason, but here we are. And Jones, the neck injury, we'll see where he goes. Another guy, perhaps cursed this year. Isaiah Pacheco, Zach Charbonnet, Damian Harris, James Cook, snap share coming down a little bit. Could be good for Damian Harris. Jalen Warren, Tyler Algier, Jeff Wilson. Jeff Wilson, the guy who could benefit from the lack of Achane. The Mostert you would expect to see is more of that backfield role, but Wilson will get a shot. Cooper Kupp teams, by the way, we're back in the hunt. Cooper Kupp, if you are a zero RB drafter, he's a guy that's obviously holding back the portfolio a little bit. Comes back to a 16-point week game. Can't be too mad at that. Devontae Smith, DK Metcalf. These guys were all underperforming. Mike Williams, we got Mims. So Mims is actually carrying a pretty good load. Slayton, a bust pick. Devontae Parker, a bust pick. Kyle Pitts signs a life again. Darren Waller signs a life again. But definitely not looking that great overall. Our grand selections when you're on the fence helped out Spags. Yes, I'm sure that's it. The chat really driving all my success. But there is something, I think, to drafting with like the pressure of people watching where you just don't want to look like an asshole. The downside is that, like, I know there's one draft where I tagged as, I'll pull it up because it was a stream where I felt like I was just getting beat up on. It was one of the ones where I did with Pete. Here we go. Worry of the non-believers is what I titled this one because people were really shitting on me after I did this draft. And that's the flip side of the coin here for when you are doing, this is a pre-draft one too. So this is the big board, but Tua, Desmond Ritter, Jacoby Brissett did take Najee, got David Montgomery, Rashad Penny killing my portfolio, but Brian Robinson, Raheem Mostert, Devin Singletary, Tyreek, Devontae Smith, Higgins, Watson, Burks, Thomas, Mims, Richie James, Gesicki, Hurst, Darnell, Washington. The team is not great, but it's like, it's advancing right now. And I think that's something too, where, you know, like if you are a streamer out there, for no matter how many people you're streaming, whether it's us doing, you know, a couple hundred live here, if it's people back at home, you know, doing 10 people streaming, I do think there is something to just the pressure that, you know, the group think that comes into that, where you don't want to take Najee Harris because the chat beats up on you. You don't want to take Adam Thielen because the chat beats up on you. That is one thing where I think being a little more agnostic about the stuff and not having the 0% guys quite as much is something that I would advocate for. And that's something you guys will absolutely see from me next year. But I do think that's one thing that jumps out, is that I think when you're drafting on stream, the pressure is there to stack and make a team that looks pretty. But I think also you do kind of fade some guys that, you know, look, Najee's not paying off at all right now. So if you guys were right about that, I shouldn't have said you guys were non-believers. That said, though, like, it is one of those things that, just being willing to draft some of those guys if you still think they're a good play, and not feeling pressured by the chat to just give into like what ETR is saying, what Pat Corain's saying, what Pete's saying, all those guys, I think is a little bit of a thing for streamers that can be tough because you just don't want to go too hard the other way. And then if you do, like Davis Pang, one of our pals, of course, who did all the streams with Hope this offseason, a new employee, Hope, congrats to her over there. But yeah, basically he drafted a lot of James Conner, drafted like a lot of Michael Thomas. That's not working out that well for him. So he put his stuff on tape, went the other way. So I guess that's the other flip side of it, is that you can sometimes dig your heels in and not do that. Team still isn't that great. No, it's not about being great. It's advancing. Christopher, fucking come on, man. You gave me $20 last week, so you get 1 week of carte blanche, but after that, nothing else. Chris Spags. All right, so there we go. One team in the top 10,000. We saw that already. That was that Baltimore Miami team. So what are we going to do there? Let's go to one that's more fun for me. DraftKings. Here we go. Oh, this is all my Millie Maker ones for best ball, right? Not my fucking browbeating from last night. All right. Top team on here. So we got one with 866. So we are doing okay in the world of DraftKings. On DraftKings, I am currently advancing 30 out of 150, a 20% advance rate on DraftKings. Again, this is going to be my cross to bear, guys. All the clout comes with the Best Ball Mania 4 win. We all know that. Double the prize pool. You can win $2 million in Best Ball Mania 4. That'd be fantastic. I will happily take my $1 million from DraftKings. I will happily trot out my DraftKings hat, become Mr. DraftKings, and go, hey, guys, yeah, great job shutting down innovation in the fantasy space. If I win this $1 million, I will become the biggest DraftKings shill that's ever been known. And there have been a lot of great DraftKings shills out there. But don't worry, guys. I will be that guy. This team, though, Jared Goff, Devon Achane, David Montgomery, Tyreek Hill, Rashee Rice, Judy. I did not expect these guys to be on this team that's performing so well. Sam LaPorta, Tyjae Spears. We've got Tua, Marvin Jones, Kincaid, Sanders, Roshan, Devontae Smith, Amon-Ra St. Brown. So I weathered Amon-Ra St. Brown, Amari Cooper, Pete Penny, Peoples-Jones, no Jerome Ford, Durham Smythe putting up a 0. And I still have a 867 in this one. I'm up almost 100 points on our guy Alex Berg in the 2 spot. So feeling good about the DraftKings haul overall. Let's see what else we got here. Another top scorer for me, 857 is the score on this one. I got to guess it's going to be a lot of Achane. Lamar, Achane, A.J. Dillon, Stephon Diggs, Michael Pittman, Tyler Boyd, Mark Andrews, Ayuk. Then we have Pollard here contributing nothings. Kyron Williams, A.R., bless his heart. Alec Pierce, fucking Dusto. Alec Pierce, the worst, one of the worst picks here. He was going so low. It seemed like it was impossible to fail. Alec Pierce, though, finding ways to fail. Hunter Renfrow running a ton of routes, doing nothing with him. Jaden Reed, route trees coming down for him. Dobbs, dog shit game yesterday. Dobbins out for the year. Mike Evans, Irv Smith, useless. Durham Smythe, useless. These teams are scoring a lot of points. A lot of useless players. So maybe some cause for concern later on if you are teams like this one that are running incredibly hot right now. If you don't have a lot of guys backstopping, that could be pretty good. Spags, still a strong DFS player. We'll give props to you on that. Thank you. It feels like an insult. These are best ball teams. This is still a best ball lineup, but I'm good at these things. It's just that, look, we all have our ebbs and flows. I win one tournament a year in DFS that carries me through everything, and I just have not won that tournament so far this year, and hopefully that'll come before January. Jalen Hurts, David Montgomery, Raheem Mostert in this one, DJ Moore, Tyreek Hill, Pickens, Kincaid, and Herbert. So this team has scored a lot of points, even though I had two guys contributing 10 points here, which does show you just need to have guys not putting up stone cold zeros. So keep that in mind. Lamar Jackson, Tyler Algier, Mike Gesicki, Odell Beckham, Rashad Bateman, Chase Brown, another useless player so far, DK Metcalf, Chris Godwin, Isaiah Likely, Izzy Abanikanda. He is probably toast. I don't know what it would take for him to get back in. Breece Hall getting hurt, Jets tanking probably would be it. Terrace Marshall, Pierre Strong, no issue with that team overall. Worst team on DraftKings. And again, I feel good about DraftKings. Like I'm winning more. I'm advancing 30 out of 150. I can't complain about it. And this is still a lot of Achane carrying it. And honestly, my scores are just not that bad overall. My worst team out of 150 has 566, which is not a great score by any stretch, but it's not like that bad. It is 11th place in this one, but could be worse, honestly. My worst team, Brock Purdy, some MVP, right? Brock Purdy. Antonio Gibson, boo. Gus Edwards, also a boo. Cooper Kupp back in action. Jordan Addison could have an upswing here with no Justin Jefferson for a month. Marquise Brown, Darren Waller. This is not a bad team. I mean, obviously this part's pretty bad. The receivers are not bad. Christian Watson gonna have better weeks. Deebo Samuel going to have better weeks. Chuba Hubbard pulls even with Miles Sanders this week in usage. Don't know if that's going to hold up over the course here, but Chuba looks a lot better on third downs than Miles Sanders does. I think we can agree with that. Jordan Love, dog shit game. Deuce Vaughn, useless pick. Zonovan Knight, useless pick. Wonder when this was drafted. Damian Harris, Chase Brown, DK Metcalf, Freiermuth, Rashad Penny. So the things I really need, I need Rashad Penny and Elijah Mitchell to get fucking anything going. Mitchell with another knee injury. Jordan Mason has a usable game that could have gone Elijah Mitchell's way. Those are two for my portfolio that I think would really help out a lot. But this is my worst team, and like this isn't that bad. Let me look at one more. Like this could have been a lot worse. When I figure worst out of 150, I would think that team is absolute dog shit. That team's got some dudes. Jordan Love, Samaje Perine, Jalen Warren. So this is like a real 0RB1. This is like guys that have a fractional role and have not gotten much more. Cooper Kupp, Christian Watson, Michael Thomas, Dallas Goedert, Luke Musgrave. They still have Olave and McLaurin on the bench. James Cook, Akers. Akers pick is busto. The work share going up for Akers on that Minnesota offense. Lowest snap count for Alex Madison since this year started. So it does feel like Akers more live as a threat for his role than guys like Chandler have been in the past. And of course, Dwayne McBride, another rest in peace. Mac Jones, Tank Bigsby, Higgins, Mitchell, Trey Lance. So this one must have been really early. Noah Fant, Xavier Hutchinson. So there we go. Dog shit team. This one deserves to be towards the bottom of the pile, but still got talent. Like it's not just all absolutely dead players. So I don't know. I guess my DraftKings teams were just better. It was a real fucking haul to draft on DraftKings this offseason, as you guys might have witnessed here from the streams. But we did it. We did okay. Thank you. So Spurious News, an independent source. This being your worst team is not bad at all. I will accept that. I think my DraftKings portfolio is really good. And that's why, again, we love Underdog. I don't get a cut from anything. If you guys sign up for DraftKings, they don't do anything for our community. The people here are online every day streaming stuff, as well as you guys in the chat. Like they don't care about any of us. They don't give us anything for free. That said, you had to draft on DraftKings. Like I felt that pretty strongly. Now we're a couple weeks in. Obviously, I feel that even more strongly. Underdog is so sharp, so good. DraftKings not so sharp, not so good. You build better teams there if you just draft intelligently. So just one thing to keep in mind if you are an Underdog loyalist. Top team for me so far on the year, still the same one, top 800, Josh Allen on drafters. We are talking now. Josh Allen, Breece Hall, Devon Achane, Kyron Williams. The rest of the running backs, we talked about James Cook coming down, Kenneth Gainwell clearly behind DeAndre Swift. Still taking enough away from Swift to have perfectly ceiling days for him, but Gainwell looking kind of useless right now. Tyreek Hill, Devontae Smith will have a big day at some point. When that is, I don't know. Sky Moore is my wide receiver 4. Never going to feel good about that. Zay Jones puts up a score this week. Alec Pierce, useless. Jalen Hyatt, useless. Terrace Marshall, useless. TJ Hawkinson, though, elite tight end. Dalton Kincaid, semi-okay. And Taysom Hill, doing nothing yet. But at one point, he's going to give us a 30-point game. We'll feel okay about that. This drafters team got LaPorta on it. McLaurin, Pittman, Tyreek. So Tyreek, really Tyreek and Achane, the big drivers for me on drafters, which is not a surprise. No AR coming up is going to be pretty tough, especially when the Bears go on bye week for a full, season point total that you're doing on drafters. That's pretty tough. But definitely, solid teams here. Worst team for me, this is going to be the one with Chubb, right? Yeah, Deshaun, Chubb, Gibbs, Javonte, just the cursed team. Some reports out there, some concerns for people that Javonte might lose his role because of how good McLaughlin's been looking. The fact that Pirine is also pretty good. I don't think that's the case. I think Javonte still worst case scenario would probably be a goal line back guy for them. Maybe can be the poor version of Jamal Williams for a Denver team that can't get in the red zone. So I don't know how much that pays off. Javonte not dead, but I do think the chances of Javonte being Breece Hall, I think, are pretty low. I think the chances of Breece being a top 10 running back are here. I think the chances of Javonte being one are here would be my guess. Very scientific. Holding up my hand and going, a little bit lower. Okay, right here. Yeah, this team stinks, but it exists. There we go. So that is the best ball review, guys. So how the rest of the season is going to go, I don't know, man. I'm getting a lot of injured guys. It's going to be a tough month run for me. But I do know one thing. I'm going to show up every single day here at 11 a.m., Monday to Friday. So please do subscribe down below. Please hit the like button. Please leave a comment if you're watching after the fact. Of course, go check out my startup probably as well. We continue to grind there, trying to find funding, trying to get partnerships going, trying to make sure the data is pristine for everything. Some new products we have coming out. All that's going on at probably. I always point the wrong. There we go. At probably.com. So go check that out. That is all the stuff that I look at for profitability that I learned from Stochastic, learned from over the years. It all goes into that product. So go check it out at probably.com. Of course, follow me at Chris Spags. Follow the show at Splash Play Pod. Shout out to all of you guys. Again, it's a long fucking year. It's a long best ball season. It is a war of attrition, as I've said, since June, since July, since May, since fucking February when we were drafting our first teams. You just got to hang in there. You got to survive. And that goes for us as the players too. So stay strong out there if you're struggling with some of this stuff. And again, if you need help, check out 1-800-GAMBLER. Birch's Health is another provider working with on Probably. So if you are feeling the gambling addiction side of that, go check that out. But otherwise, stay strong, guys. Appreciate you all for being here. And I'm going to go hit that outro. So come back tomorrow. Spags rankings. We're going to try to get it shorter, try to tighten it up, try to bring some new things to the table tomorrow. So come back for that one as we try to identify who are the superior players, who are the great spots, who's just mid. See you then. Enjoy your days, guys. And of course, good luck. Bye.